We're 16 minutes late, you know that, right?
No. I buy this
We started 45 minutes early, and we're 16 minutes late.
Okay, well, you can't be screaming with this setup, unfortunately.
Oh my god.
Hey, guys. So, unfortunately, I bought a whole setup for this podcast.
It worked last week.
It worked last week, only for the cord to completely die this week. So, it's my fault for buying a, XLR to USB cable. I knew that was going to be a bad idea, and I did it anyway because I didn't have time to buy an interface. I will be buying an interface at some point. But I will be damned if I don't get to sit and talk about Bucky Barnes' hair for an hour and a half.
So greasy.
Not anymore. Before we begin, I want to put a giant spoiler alert, because we will be talking about the new Marvel movie Thunderbolts, which by the time this episode airs will have been out for a week.
About a week, yeah.
About a week. So, and it seems like Marvel has already sort of revealed the end of the film, or sort of what the big reveal is. So unfortunately, that spoiler did not stay unspoiled.
They revealed the asterisk.
They revealed the asterisks. That's what we'll say for right now. But yeah, this is your spoiler warning. And yeah. Welcome back to the Kill Your Normie podcast, where we go deep on fandom culture and nerd culture, because it is that deep. Mm-hmm. And you're drowning.
And you're drowning, yeah.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Ren, and I love fictional men with big wet eyes.
Are you gonna start every week with I'm Ren and then admit something about yourself?
Yeah! How else are they gonna get to know me?
Is this gonna be
This is an AA meeting.
I guess.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of an AA meeting. Okay.
And alcoholics are awesome. No.
That's not what it is. So yeah, welcome back to the Kill Your Normie podcast. This week we are discussing Thunderbolts. But before we begin, we're gonna do kind of in lieu of headshots this week. We're gonna talk about last week, because it was Free Comic Book Day this past weekend.
Yeah.
So we're gonna kind of give you a little lowdown on what we did.
We did post to the Instagram, by the way.
We did post to the Instagram, by the way. So if you go to Kill Your Normie Pod on Instagram, we have several reels. So we've got our hauls, and we've got a nice little vlog reel, so you can see where we went and what we did. But now we can talk about what we bought.
Yeah.
So what, you want to go first?
Okay, so there's a manga that I'm very, very much into called Orb. And it's very, very good, and you all should read it. I will hold you at, rope point. I'm gonna tie you up and make you read it. But I only was able to find volume 1 at Barnes & Noble, and no other places seem to sell it. It's not popular. It's very good, but it's not popular. So I literally went into this comic book store, because they have a huge manga section, and I went into this comic book store with the explicit purpose of seeing if they have the other 3 volumes I needed, and they did, luckily. So basically I'm just I grabbed those, and I'm just okay, we can leave now. Jokingly,
Yeah,
obviously.
you did. You seriously grabbed 3 volumes, and you're I'm done.
Yep, I'm done. I'm done. That's it. That's my money for today. $75. But then we obviously looked around more. We really like Matt's. Matt's is great.
Yeah, we went to Matt's Cards and Comics in Hazardville, Connecticut.
Yes.
For those of you looking for a local comic book shop in the New England area. They paired theirs with a food drive, which we mentioned last week.
Yeah, it was also his birthday.
It was his birthday, I think, as well. So there was cake and things. So basically what happens is you bring food for the local food pantry, and depending on what items you bring, you're given a certain amount of tickets, which can...
We did cans, which is the easiest.
We did cans, which was the easiest. So, I brought in, a pack of 8, and you brought in, a pack of 6.
Yeah.
And so...
We split the difference.
We split the difference. So we each got 7.
We each got 7, yeah.
Yeah. So, those tickets will go towards either activities or food, because they'll do, shave ice, or in this case they did ice cream and waffles and cake
and pizza
and stuff, or you can put it towards $1 off your comic books. I think they said up to $10.
I guess.
I think something like that. So,
I think it depends on just how many you have.
Yeah, I wasn't quite clear on the system, but I figured I would just go to the counter with my stuff and show the tickets and see what they did with them.
Yeah, we did pick up free comics. The ones that I got were, I got the one for Kodansha, which was Tower Dungeon and Isaac. Really liked Tower Dungeon. Isaac was alright. Great art, though. And then I also got a Speed Racer comic for our mother.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Because she used to love Speed Racer as a kid.
That's right. I managed to find the Fantastic Four X-Men one that we talked about last week, and then none of the other ones that were on my list. So I didn't find the Gargoyles one, and I didn't find the Marvel Voices Ironheart one. So I ended up getting, it was X-Men versus Eternals versus Avengers. So it looked like it was like...
Ooh, three-way.
It looks like it was a preview comic to like a big event that happened maybe in 2022. Because they kept talking about the mutant island Krakoa, which I know from X-23, spoiler alert, exploded. So I'm like, this is clearly old. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think Krakoa, what's it called?
I think it's called Krakoa.
Krakatoa. That's literally like a volcano.
Possibly. I don't know. It looked kind of like that. But yeah, so I ended up getting those for my free comics. And then upstairs, I ended up pulling some... I tried to find the new X-23. Couldn't find those either because they only have the newest...
Like that week.
And I was like a week behind. So, and then you have to like ask for back issues and stuff.
And it was so busy.
It was so busy. I wasn't about to ask an employee for anything.
Especially because there was one person at the counter.
There was one person working the counter. God bless them.
Yeah, she was doing a fantastic job.
I don't know her name, but shout out to her. She was incredible. So actually, the first comic book we bought was from a local artist.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a comic book for a superhero called... I said on the Instagram The Heat, but I think it's just Heat.
I think it's just Heat, yeah.
I think it's just Heat. And it was by Javon Stokes, who was a local artist, and he self-published an entire series of comics. So he has Heat, and then there was
Strong.
And then Strong, which is the female superhero. And it focuses specifically on black voices.
Yes, and so he pitched Heat to us as like... If you like Invincible, if you like kind of like The Boys type deconstructions of superheroes, you're gonna like Heat. And then if you're more in for the power fantasy, like the Superman, the Captain America, he pitched Sailor Moon, that's going to be Strong. So it was really good art. Like he seemed to have a really good handle on everything. And he was there with his son. It was very cute.
He was there with his son. It was very cute. He was also selling like art, and he did a bunch of art for the movie Sinners, which I saw on the table, which was really cool. But yeah, shout out to him. He is tagged in the reels that his comic is featured in. Go check him out. I guess he hangs out at Terrificon, which is going to...
He seems also local, yeah.
Mohegan Sun.
Yeah.
So that's in August. If y'all want to check him out, he will be there, I think.
Hopefully.
He's free to correct us.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first one we bought. And then, because you just bought the Orb ones, you didn't, like, do any more, did you?
Well, because I was trying not to spend too much money.
Okay, so I ended up doing... I was the one who spent the money. So I ended up doing... First of all, I got Marvel What If Donald Duck was Thor.
For our dad.
Because he was supposed to meet us. We weren't sure if he was going to make it. He ended up making it. And accidentally bought a collector's edition.
Yes, this was very funny.
Yeah, he bought... It was a Silver Surfer?
It was a bind-up. It was a hardcover bind-up of a bunch of Silver Surfer comics, I think.
And it had a silver cover.
Because it was a Masterworks. It was a Masterworks.
Oh, and see, what we didn't know is... Matt's...
And it was in plastic.
Yeah, so what's interesting is Matt's... There's shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves of comics. Not all of them can be purchased at cover price.
A lot of them are out of print. And I noticed that with a lot of the manga.
And you don't really know... until you go to the counter.
Yeah.
And Dad did not know.
So basically, if they can't reorder it, it's usually more expensive.
Yeah, so he ended up paying like $80 for that. Apparently it's an investment item, so he bought it so it would appreciate.
Yeah, $80.
And he can't open it.
Yeah. The other things I bought besides Orb was, I bought the Mickey Mouse bind-up, which is a bunch of the newspaper cartoons from, like, the 30s.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Which I started reading them. They're definitely meant to be read weekly, because there was a lot going on in every single panel. The very first one was, because I'm only on the first arc, I guess you could say, right now. And it's him trying to teach, I think it's Minnie's brother, to be a boxer.
She has a brother?
I guess.
There's so much lore.
To be a boxer. And the first gag is the fact that, like, Mickey, I guess, used to be, like, a little bit of a lightweight boxer. And so this guy keeps trying to fight him, and Mickey keeps running away, but accidentally knocking stuff over, which knocks him out. So the boxer keeps thinking that Mickey's, that strong. It's cute. It's early 30s, it's slapstick, it's fun. And then those were yours. That was mine.
Yeah, mine, I ended up getting, the Donald Duck, What If Donald Duck was Thor, which was, I actually didn't read it before I gave it to Dad, but, when I tried to, all I kept hearing was just, like, Donald Duck's voice doing, like, Thor monologues. It was crazy. Another one I picked up, that was just, like, in a random box that was around, it was a Black Widow #1, but it's Black Widow Venom, because Black Widow gets a symbiote at a certain point. And I picked that one up because I had just finished the 2023 Thunderbolts, which I will get into in a second, where she had a symbiote suit. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, that makes total sense that she's got a spider in her name, but she's not associated with spider people.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. So I got the #1 of that. I got something called, like, the greatest singing competition in the universe or something, and it follows Dazzler, who I knew about because there were rumors that Taylor Swift was going to play Dazzler at some point. I forget what the 3 characters were.
I was going to say Black Canary. Black Canary's DC, isn't she?
Yeah. So there's 3 different characters who are all known for singing. And then I looked into one of them who I was like, oh, she looks cool. She's a mutant. She's in very few comics, but she's, like, British, and she's a mutant, and she sings, and she's, like, a famous musician. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So I picked that up. I'm trying to think, what else did I grab while I was there? I think...
You did grab an X-23.
I grabbed an X-23, the one... I think it was, like, kind of an Origins thing. It was called Innocence Lost. So it was a bind-up of a bunch of X-23 comics that kind of go into her past and how she was made. Yeah. Since I couldn't find any current X-23, I was like, cool, I'll take a bind-up.
They probably had it in the back. You just were not asking.
You're just not asking. There were too many people. Yeah. Like, it just felt mean to do so. Yeah. But I think those were all the ones I got.
Yeah. Oh, and they also had gotcha machines there. For those of you who don't know, gotcha machines are basically, it's like... There's machines you pay money, and then the little ball comes out and it's like a little toy or keychain or something inside. So they had a whole bunch of different gotcha machines. They're really popular in Japan, and I bought tokens. That's what I used my tickets for, is I bought tokens to use them.
They ate your tokens.
They ate my tokens, but the thing is, they also spat out 2 tokens at me. So really, there was no loss at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I got a little keychain of power from Chainsaw Man, I got a Score Bunny from Pokemon, and I got a little cone Kirby from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So he's up with my other Kirbys.
Excellent. So overall, I'd say, like, even though we didn't find everything we were looking for, but, like...
It was very successful.
Very successful. So this week is all about Marvel's Thunderbolts, which has been one of the biggest, like, most anticipated movies of the year, at least for me. Our history with Marvel is a little different. Like, I don't know how much you've watched previous to of Marvel previous to
I've seen everything prior to Endgame besides Doctor Strange. That's the only one I have not seen.
You've seen everything.
I've seen everything except for Doctor Strange prior to Endgame.
After Endgame,
Hulk? And Hulk. Hulk's the only other one I was like.
Are you sure you've seen everything?
Yeah. I watched them with Dad.
In order? Or, like, not, I guess
no,
not in order.
Out of order. Basically, when he would put them on, I would watch it with
them. But you've seen, like, Thor Dark World?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw that in theaters.
We did see that in theaters?
I saw that in theaters.
Me? See, I don't remember.
Once Avengers started, after Avengers, I was seeing all of them in theaters with you guys.
So we should mention, we saw Avengers 2012 opening weekend by accident.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Like, I know we saw it.
That's kind of what turned me on to it, because I didn't know that there was that big of an enthusiasm behind it. Like, to me, these were just movies.
Yeah.
And we went to see, I don't know if it was Avengers 2012, it might have been Ultron, actually.
No, we saw Avengers in theaters.
Okay. But I remember we got there, and this is back when, like, I feel like this isn't quite as big anymore, but, like, midnight premiere stuff was still a thing, and it wasn't a midnight premiere, but it was, like, the first of the main run. Yeah. Because I'm sure there was a midnight premiere, but we just...
Might have been a preview.
I don't remember. Yeah, it was, like, some random night, and we went, and there was, like...
I was, like, 13,
There was a literal queue that they set up. I don't know if you remember.
I remember that. Yeah, a little bit.
And we were like, wow. Like, this is a lot for, like, this is random for a movie. I don't think we understood, like... Because we were geeky, but I don't think we understood, like...
I barely knew... I didn't know a lot about Marvel prior to that, because I had talked to Dad about, when I was a kid, I used to talk to Dad about comic books sometimes, because I was into, like, comic strips. And he would lend me a lot of his comic strip stuff, and I would read a lot of that. And so I would ask him about superhero comics, and basically what I knew at the time when I was, like, 2000s, I'm old, but I knew mostly DC. It was, like, Superman, Batman, and then I knew Spider-Man, but I didn't really know he was Marvel. I didn't really understand a lot of the Marvel characters. I knew a lot of the Superman, the Batman characters, but I didn't know a lot of the Marvel characters. And Dad, apparently, when he was a kid, was really into Marvel. Like, he loved Marvel as a kid. And so he had to explain to me who Captain America was, who Tony Stark was, what Red Skull was. And he would tell me, like, about the stuff, like, when we were coming home from soccer practice or something. That'll come up later.
That's gonna come up later.
But... so that was basically my background for Marvel. He's just like, there used to be this guy called Captain America, and he would fight the Red Skull, and he would fight Nazis, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then I didn't really think about it more until basically the Marvel movies started coming out, so.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't, but we saw at least an Avengers in theaters opening weekend completely by accident. And it was the first time we'd ever gotten to do, like, the Marvel premiere with a crowd.
Yeah.
And that was... Anybody will tell you that is something else.
Yeah.
Like, that is being, like, even, I'm not even a big fan of crowded movie theaters anymore. Like, I as I've gotten older, like, maybe it's the neurodivergence, I don't know, I can't deal with it. It stresses me out and it distracts me. However, with Marvel movies, I do make a point of going as early as I can. I still say to this day that nothing hits the high that I felt during... Spider-Man No Way Home, especially because that was my first major one out of COVID, because my first movie out of COVID was Black Widow, and that got nobody, and that which made me really sad, actually. But getting to see Spider-Man No Way Home, and again, that was a Christmas release, so everybody's home, the place was packed, and the reactions, like, nothing, like, sometimes I will watch reaction videos, like, from the theaters just to feel something again.
I get the same reactions, like, when I go to, because I'll go to, like, anime movies, and the thing is, like, if you're an anime movie watcher in the US, they say you get 2 dates, and that's it. And usually it's, like, English dub, Japanese dub. I recently went to the Hatsune Miku Project Sekai movie with my friend, and the reactions we were getting from the crowd, like, when Miku would show up, was... amazing. It was great. It was, like, any sort of, like, fandom movie, if you're, like, into a fandom and there's a movie coming out, just go see it. Especially, like, if it's a video game movie, because those also attract pretty good crowds, unless you're getting, like, chicken jockey crowds who bring in actual chickens.
Oh my god. That's such a mess. But, yeah, like, we were pretty into Marvel. I have to say, and I'm gonna release an essay soon, I'm still writing it, but I have a bit more of my Marvel kind of backstory in there. I didn't know the details super well, and Marvel as a fandom was sort of peripheral to me. However, I do remember the Comic-Con drops. I remember, like, San Diego Comic-Con. I remember Tom Hiddleston showing up at San Diego Comic-Con in Loki and making people kneel.
Yes, I remember that.
Oh my god, the girlies went crazy.
I think that was after... That was, like, when they revealed he was coming back, or something.
Something like that. I can't remember. But, yeah, and then I remember when... they released, like, and this might have been for Ultron, I can't remember. Again, I gotta watch these again now that there's more, but there's this scene where they're at Hawkeye's cabin, and they're outside, and Tony and Steve are talking, and Tony just rips that.
No, that's not Tony, Steve.
Steve rips.
And it's literally the hottest scene in any Marvel movie.
Where he just rips the stump, and I remember the, like, everybody went nuts.
Everyone just like, whoo!
So, like, I remember, like, again, like, peripheral fandom, but I was, like, still into it, like, casually into it.
Yeah, no, same here, because I was also a big fan of N.D. Stevenson at the time. Who, if you don't know who N.D. Stevenson...
They would do that.
Yeah, so N.D. Stevenson really got their start doing Marvel fan art. A lot of Hawkeye Initiative, which, for those of you who weren't in the know... there was something called the Hawkeye Initiative, which was basically to show how sexualized women can get in comics, to basically just draw Hawkeye in certain cover girl poses. Specifically, like, certain, like, cover girl superhero poses, where he's just, like, you know, boobs and butt pose, but it's Hawkeye. But N.D. Stevenson would do a lot of that, a lot of, like, Avengers Tower type stuff.
Avengers Tower, those were the days, man.
But, yeah.
I do remember, like... Science Bros. I remember that ship.
Vaguely, I remember that because I wasn't super into, like, the Tony thing.
I wasn't into shipping in terms for
I just
Marvel.
wasn't into Tony, period. I was a Cap girly.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, because we were Team Cap during Civil War.
You were on Tony.
This is what I mean by, like,
Iron Man dress, didn't you?
Never had an Iron Man dress. I have a Cap t-shirt. I have an Avengers dress, but I never had an Iron Man dress.
For some reason, I remember you having, like, Iron Man merch, and you were, like, team Iron Man for a little bit.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't think I ever was.
I was always Cap. Cap was my favorite, and then I liked Thor for a little bit after Ragnarok. And Guardians of the Galaxy. I like Guardians of the Galaxy as well.
You still haven't seen the third one.
I still haven't seen the third one because I really don't like animal abuse.
Yeah,
it's something I can't stomach.
Yeah, that's definitely one where, like, that's definitely one where, like, I've seen it once.
And you're like, I don't need to see it again.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
I think the only time I'd ever watch it again would be if, like, I was doing a full rewatch and I've got, like, palate cleansers.
Yeah.
Like, because...
It's kind of like how, like, you watch Grave of the Fireflies, but then you have to watch Totoro right after.
Yes. It's like, it's so... It's one of the best entries in the trilogy. It's just such a rough watch emotionally. So, like, it's... Again, like, truly, Guardians truly is a series that did not miss with every single movie.
Yeah. I really liked Guardians. I'm also, like, and this is a very regrettable fact about me, I'm actually, like, a big fan of Chris Pratt characters, unfortunately.
Not the person.
Not the person, really. But it's, like, every single one of his characters, because I'm just, like, I know, like, what his politics and stuff are, and just, like, every single one of his characters, I'm like, God damn it, he gets me every single time, and it's probably because I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite characters in Parks and Rec, so, like, he has me in a death grip every single time he does anything. The only thing he didn't get me with was Garfield.
Yeah. So, we watched everything up. You went Infinity War with us, Endgame, all that.
I basically saw everything except for Doctor Strange, and I think the only reason I didn't see Doctor Strange was because I don't like Benedict Cumberbatch.
You don't like Benedict Cumberbatch at all?
I just don't care for him. I don't care for him.
Listen, and I can be, my Cumberbatch girlies days are behind me. Like, I think he's, personally, I think he's a good actor. As, like, actors who actor, I think he is a good actor.
And the thing is, like, I'm not even saying, like, he's a bad actor or anything like that, or I'm not even saying he's a bad person. It's just, like, something about him I just don't click with him.
Okay.
I don't click with him. It's not anything against...
Yeah. And Doctor Strange isn't really one I pull out often. At the time it came out, I thought maybe he'd be a fave because there is something very House-like about him, and I was deep in my House hardcore phase at the time, but yeah, it's not one I pull out. If anything, I'd pull out, like, Multiverse of Madness because Wanda eats in that. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that we watched Infinity War, Endgame, and then after Endgame, you kind of fell off.
I did. I mean, it was also, like, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I fell off is that I'm not a TV watcher. I don't really like watching TV, personally. So, like, once they started releasing, and now you have to understand the TV shows in order to understand the movies, that's when I'm just like, and I'm out.
Yeah. And see, for me, that was, like...
I tried WandaVision. I liked the early episodes of WandaVision, but
you didn't like that it tied in.
Yeah. No, I would have, if they had just kept the sitcom dynamic the whole way through, I would have probably loved the whole thing. But
we're going to talk about this a little bit later, like, just sort of, like, the pacing of the television shows and everything. But that's kind of where we stood. Whereas, so you kind of fell off with Marvel, whereas
the last one I had seen before this one was Shang-Chi.
Oh, yes, that's right. You came with us to see Shang-Chi.
And I like Shang-Chi.
I
did like Shang-Chi.
So yeah, like, you kind of fell off. I've seen everything basically since Endgame, save for give or take a TV show. I've seen, like, basically little bits of everything, but there are ones that I vibe with and ones that I don't.
You're a Captain Marvel girly.
I am a Captain Marvel girly, but, like, so, like, I got all the way through WandaVision, all the way through Falcon and the Winter Soldier, soon to be Captain America and the Winter Soldier, all of Ms. Marvel, but, like, I didn't finish Moon Knight, not because it was boring, I think I just kind of, like, fell out of the mood.
Yeah. What's his name was in it, right?
Oscar Isaac, yes.
Yes.
And he's very good in it. It's a very good series. She-Hulk, I got through, like, halfway, fell off. And then, there was the third one. Secret Invasion. And that one was just, like, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to because Nick Fury was back. I was so excited for this. And also because of Skrulls, and that ties into Captain America, Captain Marvel. And I was excited, and I was very disappointed with Secret Wars.
Yeah.
But anyways, I doubled down. You kind of fell off. I have my favorites, and I've sort of changed how I engage with Marvel. Again, sort of getting into when it came to, like, the hyper productivity that was happening.
And I like Deadpool.
Oh, you like Deadpool.
I do like Deadpool.
You saw Deadpool and Wolverine with
that
us.
was cinema. That wasn't even a movie. I have to call it a film.
Yes, it was a film. So, yeah. Basically, I've seen pretty much everything, or at least little bits of everything. I am now on my Daredevil shit because I missed Daredevil the first time around. And Daredevil Born Again, I've heard, is fantastic. Also, somebody who worked at the theater I'm at is in Daredevil Born Again. So
right, I forgot about that.
I'm actually watching just to get to see him in it. Because
I know him.
It's become a running gag.
Yeah.
So he plays a police chief.
Oh.
And we keep talking about him like he's the main character of Daredevil Born Again. And we're gonna get t-shirts made. But anyway, when I see him, I'm gonna screen grab it and just screen print some t-shirts. But we were like all for Chief Gallo supremacy. Again, I have no clue if he's good guy, bad guy. Nothing. We're just like Chief Gallo.
He did nothing wrong.
He did nothing wrong.
And if he did, then who cares?
Yeah, basically, yeah. We're like Chief Gallo supremacy. But yeah, so I'm right now I'm on my Daredevil shit. I'd like to get back on my Jessica Jones shit because they're the same thing. Like they're both part of the Defenders. But one thing at a time. But anyways,
I've seen a couple episodes of Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones is good.
It's alright.
Like they need to bring it back. But yeah, so that's kind of where we both sit with Marvel right now. But I'm definitely the Marvel head of the two of us. Okay, we're back from a quick break. We are recording this on the first Monday in May, so we were looking at all of the Met Gala
We're watching
looks.
watching people serve cunt.
Jesus Christ. We're gonna get, like, I don't even know. We're not even monetized, but, like...
So we have nothing to worry about. We have nothing to lose.
Oh my god. But yes, we were looking at the Met Gala looks on our break there, so... so now we're gonna get to spoiler content. So I figured I was gonna set up basically just a little bit of background on Thunderbolts in general. So the main thing to know is... So I went and looked up kind of, like, Thunderbolts... history, because there have been a lot of different versions of Thunderbolts with different people on the team. The most recent one was the series in 2023. It was about 4 or 5 comics long, and it was called Thunderbolts World Strike. And basically the idea was that Bucky Barnes inherited a bunch of intel about the world's biggest, like, villains on Earth. So Red Skull was one of them. Red Skull just seems to reanimate himself any way he possibly can.
All we have to do is just burn your face and anyone can be Red Skull.
Anybody can.
I could be Red Skull.
You too could be Red Skull.
You too could be a Nazi.
You too. Ain't that the truth? Anyways, so they'll take down Red Skull, they'll take down Kingpin, who also is known as Wilson Fisk from the Daredevil series.
Wide.
He's not portrayed quite as wide in the live action, but then they take down everything, like, from the roots. So it seems like whenever they take down one person, a power vacuum is created, or, like, another villain will inherit.
I mean, that's just how any kind of power works.
Yeah, any kind of power or anything like that. So usually it's like, we got this guy, and then next week we gotta go get this person. And so the Thunderbolts in the comics, at least in this series, were kind of a revolving cast of characters. However, Valentina is the first one Bucky goes to, and Bucky is the one who recruits her.
Yes.
So in the comics, Bucky is the creator of the Thunderbolts. He's also the one who chooses the name of the Thunderbolts and finds everybody. And Bucky Barnes doesn't go by the Winter Soldier in these comics. He goes by the Revolution.
I'm making a team. I don't know. I don't remember the recruitment.
Are you seriously trying to do Nick Fury right now?
It wasn't even an impression. It was just... I was trying to... I'm a flop.
Anyway, can I finish my PowerPoint or what?
Sorry. Sorry, next slide.
Next slide. So, the Thunderbolts throughout the comics consist of Bucky Barnes, Countess Valentina, I am not saying her full name, I do not care, Red Guardian, Sharon Carter, who you might know as Agent 13, played by Emily Van Camp.
Oh, Captain America's ex-girlfriend.
Captain America's ex-girlfriend and the niece of Peggy Carter.
Yeah, which is a little weird.
Cool thing is, I didn't know Sharon Carter had, like, a hero alter ego, actually, in the comics. I thought she was just Agent 13 or worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. No, she is, like, an actual character. I think, and forgive me if I get it wrong, I think her name's Destroyer, and she wears a human skull. Like, as, like, face armor.
I kind of like that.
That's cool. We get Natasha Romanoff as Black Widow, Yelena Belova as White Widow, Shang-Chi makes an appearance, and we get John Walker as U.S. Agent. So there's not... it's weird, because when I was going through this lineup, I was like, oh, there's not too much of a difference. And then I realized that we switch out several people when we go into the movie version of Thunderbolts. So, movie Thunderbolts is accidentally assembled by Countess, I'm going to see if I can do it, Countess Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so she is basically a rich benefactor.
It's Dufontaine, I think.
It's I don't care.
She's gonna get mad at you.
I don't care. Anyways, we love Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this house, but she assembles this team by accident, which consists of Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. We get Ava, who is also known as Ghost. She was introduced in the second of the Ant-Man films. John Walker as U.S. Agent, who is introduced to us in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yelena Belova, who we've known since Black Widow, and she's also popped up in Hawkeye. Taskmaster, who was introduced in Black Widow, and Bob, otherwise known as Sentry or the Void. So they get assembled kind of by accident because all of them have been hired by Valentina at one time or another to be mercenaries or fixers, and because Valentina is currently undergoing impeachment because she works in the government, she was
head of security.
She was head of
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security, I think.
Yeah.
In the Marvel Universe. Which is interesting because that means she would have been appointed by Ross, who is now the Red Hulk.
Okay, yeah.
So their president turned into a Red Hulk and is now in prison underwater. So she is currently under impeachment, so she sends them to go basically clean up the last of the evidence of any kind of projects she was working on, and then turns out that she had hired each of them to kill one of the other in order to completely get rid of any loose ends, and then she was planning on incinerating all the bodies along with the evidence.
So, like, even if they didn't kill each other, they were going to
die anyway. Yeah. So eventually we end up with all of them figuring this out and sort of working together against a common enemy. So before I want to go into, like, the rest of it and, like, the thoughts I had, I want to kind of go through, like, the 3 questions I kind of went into the movie with based off what was being told to us in the lead up. So number 1, what is the deal with the asterisks? It was always Thunderbolts asterisk.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, I want to know what that's about. I knew there would be an asterisk reveal because shortly after screenings began, a video did go up saying Thunderbolts asterisk reveal. I immediately blocked it from my page. I could not be spoiled. The second question was the director comes from indie A24 stock. A lot of the artisans and the behind the scenes people came from A24 indie stock, and they were saying that this was going to be Marvel's answer to the A24 trend. So the second thing I wanted to know going in was, did they accomplish that? Jake Schreier, who is the director, is best known for Beef on Netflix. And fun fact about that, because when I was reading up the Empire article about the movie, Steven Yeun was supposed to be Sentry.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
That would have been very cool. I like Steven Yeun a lot.
Steven Yeun was supposed to be Bob. And unfortunately, because of the strikes, he had to drop out. But he wants to come back to a Marvel project at some point, so that could
Steven Yeun.
That could be fun. Everybody loves Steven Yeun. We love him so much. He plays Speckle on Tuca and Birdie. How can you not love him?
He's in Voltron.
I know he is.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. And then my third question was, what does this mean for the MCU? Because this was going to be the final movie of Phase 5. So basically everything before this was Phase 5. It has been a very confused phase. And so I'm going to get into kind of what that means for the future coming up very soon, because they are filming the first major Avengers of this kind of era of Marvel.
Yeah. And then I had one question going in, and that was, is this something that's going to attract new Marvel fans to this project, especially Marvel fans who have dropped out after Endgame? And so that was kind of my perspective going in.
Yeah. And I have also a little bit of perspective, even just from what the fandom's reaction has been, now that my embargo has been lifted and I can actually look at fan content for Thunderbolts. So I don't have a ton of general notes. It's not very similar to, like, Snow White. When we went into Snow White, we went in with notebooks, fully intending to, like, write down all of our thoughts. In this case, I was waiting for this movie for so long, I just wanted to, like...
You just wanted to enjoy it.
I just wanted to enjoy it, but that's why I kind of went in with those questions, so I just knew what to look for and what to focus on. And then what's been helpful is now that I've been engaging with the fandom, bits and pieces are also sticking in my memory a bit more. I wanted to go see it again before this episode, but I just didn't have the time.
Yeah, no, it was very tight turnaround for this.
Very tight turnaround for this. So kind of my general notes were... First of all, this movie did a really good job. They did a lot of Avengers 2012 callbacks, which was really interesting. And I thought I'd only found one, but turns out there was, like, a bunch of little things.
There was a multiple.
Sprinkled through. So, like, the main one that stuck out to me where I kind of, like, did the Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme was... there is a fight sequence where Bucky breaks out of a truck they were driving in, and he rips the door off the hinges and uses it like a shield, very similar to Cap in the very first Captain America film. Battle of New York gets referenced multiple times.
It's kind of almost the backdrop of kind of what's going
on. It is, because they do... What I liked about this is the fact that Thunderbolts almost was set against who's not here. Because a lot of the people in the Thunderbolts have connections to original Avengers. So Bucky with Steve and Yelena with Natasha. You could also say Ava with Ant-Man, but Ant-Man's still here. And, you know...
And then John Walker also with
John
Cap.
Walker has kind of a connection to Cap, even though they never met. And he's also trying to live up to a legacy that he really had no part in. So, again, it's a lot of pointing out the fact that this is not... the era of Endgame. This isn't the Infinity Saga anymore. And even in the advertising for the film, the fact that they kept using the clip of Valentina going, the Avengers aren't coming. They're done. It's over. And the fact that we get the character of Mel, her assistant, Valentina's assistant, who would have been the age we were when Avengers 2012 happened. So the fact that she mentioned, she's like, look, I was in high school when this happened, and now I'm a grown-up, and, like... everything's a little darker and bleaker and nobody's coming. And I'm just like, ooh, like that's kind of... I do think Mel sort of served as proxy for the audience a little bit. I'll talk about her later. But yeah, we got that nice Bucky, like, Cap callback. Battle of New York, there was an entire scene involving, like, an exhibit.
They literally did, like, their own little Battle of New York gala.
Yeah, that was crazy. And
they had Loki's staff. They had
artifacts I was, like, shocked they had, frankly. And I kind of want to almost track it the way, like, you would track the Tesseract early on. Because I'm like, where did you get this stuff? There's, like... the Battle of New York also gets referenced, and I know you haven't watched a lot of the TV shows. Battle of New York has been referenced as a historical event multiple times throughout the MCU now. Hawkeye, it's brought up a lot because Kate Bishop was also influenced by Battle of New York. So she was living in New York and in Midtown when this stuff went down. She was very scared. I think her father died in that battle, and she saw Hawkeye fighting and said, you weren't super, you didn't have any powers, you couldn't jump from tall buildings, but, like, you saved the world with just a bow and arrow. And she was like, so I decided I wanted to be like you. So, like, it's always been there as, like, a legacy sort of thing, but this really hit home, and also the way the final battle sequence was shot was very similar.
She also bought Avengers Tower.
She bought Avengers Tower. So
and there's multiple scenes inside Avengers Tower.
Yes. So it's a bit of a, like, homecoming, but also come back wrong feeling. And now it is called the Watchtower. It is no longer Avengers Tower, I don't think. I don't know if we'll get to the end, but I don't know if it's still called the Watchtower. So my next thought was, we've got a lot of characters who are, like, top billed. It's a team movie. As I've learned watching some of the X-Men films, there's always someone who gets shafted. In this case, it was Taskmaster and Ghost. Taskmaster more so, because Taskmaster, while being advertised heavily in all of the marketing material, gets killed within the first 30 minutes. In a very...
anticlimactic way.
Very anticlimactic, very cold-blooded way. I did read an article, now that once the movie came out, articles came out saying, like, why'd you do that? And the director basically said, we started shooting, the strikes happened, so we had to stop. It allowed us to kind of step back from things for a bit. And he said, I decided, like, maybe we wouldn't get... there just wasn't enough time to cover everybody. And he said he also wanted to create an air of, like, anybody could die at any time, which I don't think was accomplished killing Taskmaster, because after the Avengers Doomsday announcement with the cast, and we see that every Thunderbolt is included, not Taskmaster, everybody knew from the second that came out, we were like, okay, she's dead.
Yeah.
We knew that for sure. Whether we... If they were going to kill her, I wish we had given her some time to care. Like, because, unfortunately, Taskmaster's arc in this case sort of begins and ends with Black Widow, which is she was Dreykov, who was the head of the Red Room's daughter, who got severely injured in an explosion caused by Natasha while she was a child, and while the daughter was a child, not Natasha.
Yeah.
And the arc ended up being Natasha saying, like, she never should have abandoned her, like, she was just as much of a victim as the rest of them were. And with Yelena being there, also in the Red Room, has history with that. They give her a bit of lip service, Yelena does, about that connection. But again, it falls really flat.
Yeah.
So I wasn't super pleased with that. That's, like, kind of the one thing that brought my rating down, because I was like, it just felt cheap, and also it's a female character, which doesn't help, and second of all, I was just thinking about the actress who probably signed on to this and was told that she was going to be part of, like, a major team, and then gets...
killed off.
Gets killed off.
Yeah.
And then gets continued to be included in all of this material. It
kind of rubbing salt into the wound.
It rubbed salt into the wound. I felt really bad for her, and they still were like, she's a wonderful actress and all this stuff, and I was just like, I don't know. That felt crappy. But, on to the next thing. I do agree... While some plots got tied up very nicely, a lot gets left in the dust. There were a few... I was left with a few questions coming out of the movie. Mel specifically, because Mel as a character seems to have sort of a crisis of loyalty, because she is in contact with Bucky and knows that Valentina is maybe going too far with some things. But you get the sense that she doesn't really pick a side quite yet.
Yeah.
Because the last we see her is her taking out Sentry. Briefly.
Yeah.
Just to save Valentina when you think she's gonna flip.
Yeah.
And I was kind of hoping at the end, and maybe in the post-credits scene, because it takes place in the tower, I was hoping we'd see her, and we don't. So I'm very curious to see where she ends up, or what exactly her deal was, because, again, we did not get a conclusion from her. Another thing I should have talked about with, like, certain areas not getting covered, Bob's character, when he touches you, you basically go to a place called the Void, where you go through trauma rooms, or if you've ever watched Lucifer, because Dad made this comparison, he says it's like your hell loop, where you witness, like, things you feel guilty about, or just, like, bad things that have happened to you, just, like, on a constant loop.
Yeah.
We got to see Yelena's, we got to see John Walker's, we got to see Valentina's, and nobody else's.
Yeah.
And I was really...
We did see Bob's, briefly.
We see Bob's, but that makes sense because he's the guy who's doing it. Ava gets nothing. Strangely enough, Ava seems the most well-adjusted out of everybody, as Ghost. Like, it was really interesting. I do think she got shafted a lot.
No Red Guardian either. You didn't
No
get
Red Guardian either.
Red Guardian. Yeah.
That's true. And we should include, by the way, Red Guardian was a total highlight for me. But yeah, I do think, and I think almost the fact that we do get to see Walker's trauma room, as people have been calling it, but we don't follow up on it, also made it a little bit of a weaker story. Because as we know from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, John Walker was a good all-American boy. He's got a wife. He had a child on the way in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They now have a child. And you assumed that his family was still there, and he told a lie, basically saying he has a family to go home to. And then you find out his wife had left him and took the kid with him. And we never really get into that more. They kind of bring it up one time, but it's not explored.
The story is very, very focused on Yelena.
Yelena and Bob and Red Guardian, I would argue, are the heart of the story. Yes. Which, again, when it's focused on them, the story was good. Like, I think they wrapped things up nice, they covered things, but I just think sometimes in these team-up movies, it's really hard to give everybody proper time. Yeah, so that was...
Especially, like, when like, all these characters have their origin stories, but you're not going to be familiar with them. Not, like, as much as, like, someone who, if, like, because, like, John Walker was introduced in the TV shows. I knew basically nothing about John Walker going in besides what you have told me. I hadn't seen Black Widow, so I know nothing about Red Guardian, Yelena, anything. Ghost was from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Which was 2018.
Yeah, which was a while ago.
Yeah.
And she hadn't really come back since then.
No,
this was her first appearance since then.
I think so, yeah.
And I remember being, like, visibly shocked, because I remember her being a lot younger in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
She looks the same.
She looked a little older to me.
Well,
yeah.
been.
But, yeah. And I haven't seen the movie recently again. So, but, yeah. So, like, it's a little more difficult to follow than something like the Avengers, where they were kind of like everyone got their origin story and then they did the team up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So also going into Avengers comparisons, because a lot of the fandom really took to this movie, I have to say. The fandom really, really is into it. Because of the found family aspect to it. There's kind of like I wouldn't say an argument, but, like, kind of, like, a disagreement about Avengers, the original 5, because people are like, I miss when they were, like, friends, and people are like, were they friends or were they coworkers?
Yeah.
And this one feels a bit more like begrudging found family, because whenever they do help each other, but it's always kind of with a sigh and an I'm gonna complain the whole time kind of thing.
My friend and I actually have a term for this. We call it found family at gunpoint.
That's actually a really good way to describe it.
We call it either found family at gunpoint or forced family.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah. So interestingly enough, some of the films that were listed, Jake Schreier put together a reel of films that inspired the tone of the movie, and he used, like, Reservoir Dogs, Mission Impossible, a lot of these, like, team up heist movies, but one that stood out was Toy Story 3. And when they asked Florence Pugh about it, they're like, Toy Story 3? Like, that was an influence? And and Jake Schreier had said, well, specifically, it's the scene where they're going into the incinerator and they're all holding hands.
Of course. That's the first thing I thought of when you said that.
And and Florence said, she's like, it's really fun. She's like, yes, there is, like, kind of a scene like that. She's like, but the thing is, they don't know that they're holding hands yet. And I was like, okay. And when I saw that a literal incinerator scene comes up really, really early before they even know each other, the fact that they immediately kind of go into working together. Yeah. And again, it's begrudging. Yeah. Like, they hate that they're doing it, but they still make the decision on their own to do it. And I think that's, like, a big piece of it, and people are really taking to that, and it's kind of spawning a bit more of, at least in, like, fan fiction space, a bit more of a, like, 2012 Avengers Tower fix. And people are like, I want this to come back. People liked the banter. People like the dynamics that are happening here, but also people love to mine some trauma. Yeah. There's lots of trauma there to mine. Speaking of trauma, one of the things I did like is we didn't rehash Bucky Barnes' past for the millionth time. Yeah. Because we all know Bucky Barnes was the Winter Soldier. We have kind of gone through him atoning for his sins for at least 3 movies. Because we got Captain America and the Winter Soldier. We got it again in Civil War. We get it again in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I do think finally with Falcon and the Winter Soldier it kind of sticks. And now he's in a place where he can almost be mentor. And I kind of like that for him. Yeah. I like that a lot for him. That seems like an actual step forward. I also like the fact that the congressman thing was interesting. That was another plot I felt like didn't get tied up. Like, they mentioned he's only there for half a session. And we never find out how it happened, why it happened. I'm guessing there might have been some deleted scene, but he didn't seem particularly into it in the first place, and I don't understand why it was a plot point.
My favorite scene with Bucky is when he's talking to Mel on the phone, and he's doing the dishes, and he opens the dishwasher, and his arm is in there.
Well, because he spilled on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like me for real. Because I can't eat food without spilling on myself. Yeah, there were, like, little moments like that I kind of enjoyed. Speaking of Bucky, and I want to get into the post-credit scene just real quick. We got comic-accurate Bucky hair in the post-credit scene. It's long, but it's fluffy, and that's what we like. That's what
he took a shower.
He took a shower, thank God. He looks so good. I'm sure it was probably a wig, because according to reports, that was shot on the set of Doomsday. It was shot like a week before the movie released. So that is recent footage. considering Sebastian Stan is bald now, I'm assuming it's a wig. If it is, it's a great wig. I love it so much.
Not bald, the buzz cut.
He's bald. But anyways, so speaking of, just going to the post-credits scene still, because we're still talking about, kind of going through my notes here. There's a moment where he mentions that he called Sam because they've brought the Avengers back. Valentina has basically turned a situation where she would have gotten absolutely annihilated and made it a PR stunt where she's like, I've created the new Avengers and it's the Thunderbolts, which is the asterisk reveal is that the new Avengers are the Thunderbolts. Yeah. And so now we have kind of a clear set team that we know are the Avengers. And Sam finds out. Obviously, Captain America was the leader of the Avengers initially. Tony bankrolled it, but I'd like to think that Cap's the leader of the Avengers. Sam was...
His name's literally Captain.
I know. Sam's unhappy about this. And Bucky makes a point of saying he's trying to trademark the name. And people are kind of going a little crazy about that because people do love Bucky and Sam's relationship a lot. And they think that Sam is gonna turn on Bucky. My questions was like, are they trying to set up maybe another Civil War situation? Or is it because Sam is mad that Valentina is involved at all? And I feel like people are taking it immediately to a, like, they're gonna face off kind of place. And I'm like, I think it's maybe more of who's involved. Especially also John Walker is also involved. They do not like each other. Yeah. So that's kind of like... I have questions about that. Maybe we'll get something in Doomsday. Maybe this is a plot point down the line. There was one line I wanted to point out that Valentina gives, and I immediately like committed it to memory when I heard it. And it's when she's talking about good and evil, and she's talking about how like sometimes when you grow up, there are bad guys and there are worse guys. And Mel is like, but can't we like change the world and be good people? And she says, righteousness without power is just an opinion. And I was like, that's a fucking bar.
Yeah.
Like that, I was just, but there was something about this film in general. Again, we're coming from Infinity Saga, very fantastical, very hopeful. If you think about what the world was like when that started, like... Obama era, very optimistic. And now we are no longer who we were culturally. The fact that we're kind of getting to a place where it seems like you cannot move anything unless you compromise your principles. I think that was a very interesting and very human thing to bring up in a movie like this that is very formulaic. Yeah. But yeah, those are my general thoughts. Those are my thoughts.
So coming from the aspect where I have no idea what's going on in the MCU right now, basically. Because I had no idea. I totally forgot about Sam and Bucky calling and all that. I don't know anything about their relationship because I never watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So basically, I'm coming in this completely blind, not knowing any of the characters except for Bucky. We love Bucky.
We stand Bucky.
We stand Bucky.
There's a Funko Pop looking at us right now.
Oh, yeah. And a Funko Pop of Yelena. Hi, Yelena.
Hi, Yelena.
And so my overall impression, I didn't like it. I didn't like the movie, and I think it's just because I'm not a Marvel fan, and this kind of meant... Everything that was going on meant nothing to me, and it all went right over my head. But even, like, coming to it from, like, I feel like it also gives me an opportunity to look at these characters without rose-tinted glasses. Where, like, I already know what's going on. Like, the people who already know what's going on, they already care about them. I don't care about these characters. And I think that's very unfortunate for something that is supposed to be a very, very heartfelt movie. Because, like, just rattling off my impressions of the characters really quick, I didn't like Yelena. I felt she was sad and she was snarky. Ghost was also sad and snarky and then didn't really have much to do outside of being, like, a living walk-through-walls glitch to get them out of, like, two weird situations. John Walker pops up and he's loud, sad, and snarky. And so I'm like, okay, refreshing for 20 minutes. And then he's just... I could swing a dead cat around my hometown and hit 10 guys just like him. Yeah. Red Guardian he was upbeat, but it's like, the only reason he worked for me, the only reason I liked him in the movie was because he was set against such just not fun to watch people. I don't want to say awful people, because clearly they have moral standing and stuff like that. But just people that weren't fun to watch. But even then, like, if you take him out of there and you put him in anything else, I don't think think I'd care about him too much, he'd kind of fade into the background for me. I'm not a huge fan of what they did with Bucky. And I think it might have just been just because he had to do rewrites and stuff like that, but I felt like he could have really been anyone bringing them together. It didn't have to be Bucky. Like, it could have just been any government agent bringing them together.
I disagree on that only because of his background.
Fair enough.
I feel like, yes, any government agent could have brought them together, but I think he was the only one who could make it work.
Fair enough. But even then, I don't feel like he did... I didn't really get the impression he did much to make it work. I also, like, since a lot of the characters are basically snarking at each other all the time, it gets old for me pretty fast when there's not really... Like, there's certain very, very human moments that they have. Like, I love Bucky with his arm in the dishwasher. I think that's very, very funny.
Or I talked about in the back of the box truck.
Where they're, like, showing off their weapons.
Where they're showing people their weapons the way kids show people toys.
Yeah.
That, to me, like...
Yeah.
Is very, like... That's endearing. I like that.
I don't know, it's just, like... I was watching a video essay earlier today about character design, and they were talking about specifically the sexualization of women in character design. This has nothing to do with Thunderbolts in particular, but the YouTuber said something that kind of made me think of it a little bit, where they're like, when you sexualize a woman, every single woman in a costume, it doesn't say anything about the character. When all the characters are wearing not necessarily modest clothing, but not sexualized clothing, and one character is, then it does say something about them. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same way about these characters where if they're all snarky and sad and stuff like that, it doesn't stand out. Mm-hmm. It just all blends together, particularly Yelena and Ghost, because they kind of had the same attitude going into this, and a lot of the quippiness and the snarkiness kind of all blends together to me, and the Marvel fans seem to like it. Like, I'm not, like, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. But there was a lot of moments where the theater was laughing, and I was just confused. Because it wasn't funny to me, or had gotten old. There was one joke that I did laugh at, and that was, so the way that they got the Thunderbolts name is Bucky did not give them the Thunderbolts name. They got the name because Yelena used to be in a soccer team.
A Pee Wee soccer team.
And they sucked. They were terrible. And it was called the Thunderbolts.
And Alexei, Red Guardian, would keep kind of invoking this to encourage Yelena to be on a team, because he sees that she's lonely and isolated, and he's encouraging her to just, like, be with people who get it, too. Yeah. But he keeps invoking the name Thunderbolts. Yeah. And everybody's like, this is so stupid. Like, what are you talking about? This is so stupid. We have no connection to this.
And so then there's a scene where she fails to talk down Bob from the ledge. I'll talk about Bob in a bit. She fails to talk down Bob from a ledge. Metaphorical ledge, runs off. Red Guardian chases after her, and basically they go into a discussion of, do you remember why you wanted to be a goalie? And she just goes, because I didn't want to run, and I'm just like, that's me. That was me playing soccer for 6 years. I was actually a decent goalie, though.
Yeah.
But our soccer team also sucked. We started out on one team, and then we got enough people that we could split into 2 teams, and my team was cannon fodder. We were, like, the early season team that you would just beat to get out of the way. Yeah. But yeah, so I related to that a little bit. I thought that was very funny. But a lot of the other jokes a lot of the quippiness just stuff that just didn't land for me, because it didn't really say anything about the characters.
I will, like, concede that, like, yes, like, if they're all snarky and, like, whatever. I do think there was, like, an aspect, because you said, like, when one isn't, it says something about them. I think... This is what also, like, specifically with Bucky in particular, like, this is what made me think, like, oh, the stuff he went through in Captain America. I keep wanting to say Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and that's not it. It's Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. They do change the title at the end. But at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like, feeling like he actually went through some growth is because in this instance, I saw... Because he was the snarky one.
Yeah, he was.
Sam is very upbeat, very charismatic. Bucky is the snarky, sad one. He's
brooding.
He's emo. Yeah, which we love. But the fact, I think it gave him also a bit of a space to not be that for once, because he's surrounded by it.
Fair enough.
He was a little bit, but I think it's more of a, like, you can dish it out and I can take it too.
Fair enough, but it's also, like, at that point he started to fade into the background for me.
See, in my mind, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's a new stage for him.
Yeah. But I guess maybe I was just also a little sad because he's basically the last remnant of the Marvel saga that I know that was in this movie. Besides the actual props, like actual objects. And then we have to talk about Bob, because Bob was okay. He was definitely a brush up right there when everyone was like sniping, snarking stuff, and he's just there like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but people love Bob. He has definitely become White Man of the Week.
Yeah, he's White Man of the Week in fandom. He's definitely gonna just be. He's the new like pathetic wet cat that everyone's gonna like.
So Bob's story is basically that he is severely mentally ill. And he basically kind of wrecked you get bits and pieces. Like, he kind of wrecked his life, ended up in Southeast Asia, ended up, like, getting contacted by a person who's just like, hey, we have this, like, experimental process to, like, make you better. He takes the process, because he's like, I have nothing else to lose, takes it. He supposedly fails according to what's going on. They think he's dead, put him in a coffin, and then he's in, like, basically the paperwork that they're gonna burn in the incinerator. Turns out he's not dead, and he survived the whole process, and now he has superpowers. And it was cool. I liked him. I liked the fact that he was a little stupid. So I did like him. I did like watching him a bit. The part that started sticking to me was, so Valentina kind of basically takes him back to New York.
When Valentina figures out that this was the one survivor of these experiments, all of a sudden he becomes very valuable.
Yeah. So she takes him back to New York, and basically she's talking with Mel, I believe, and they're going through, like, his files, and because they're basically trying to build, like, they're trying to build a Superman.
They're trying to build
They're trying to build a Superman.
Yeah.
A very marketable Superman.
Yeah. It's very Vought.
Very Homelander.
It's very Homelander, very Vought.
From The Voice, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're basically trying to build a Superman, but I think it's Mel who this is just, like, because he keeps saying this too, but they're like, he has, like, these up days and these down days.
She said delusions of grandeur,
delusions
but also,
of
like,
grandeur,
deep depression.
And I, as someone who's very entrenched in mental illness myself, I picked up, I'm like, oh, he's bipolar. Yeah. He's bipolar. And then my stomach just fills with dread, because I've seen these kind of plot lines play out so many times. Specifically plot lines where it's like a mentally ill person is given power, and then basically it's just like, they can't wield power because they're depressed. Because it makes them, like, lash.
It makes
them dangerous.
Makes them dangerous, or more of who they are, or how they usually put it.
Mostly dangerous. Mostly dangerous is what I'm thinking of. But
they keep trying to point out.
I know,
like,
but I'm talking in general, more in general media, not necessarily in comics.
Oh no, I was saying in the film, because Mel says, you give Steve Rogers it, it's one thing, but if you give him this, it's another thing.
But again, that was like, it was a because I'm just like, there's two ways this plot line usually goes. Either they're proven right and the person becomes evil, and they just have to take him down, like they just, take him out behind the shed, and or they do like the you are not your trauma type thing, and I've seen both plot lines play out before. It's a very common plot that I've read, and basically the branch they went in was the better branch, which is the you are not your trauma branch. And basically Sentry's powers is like, he's indestructible, he's super strong, he's super fast, he can fly, and then you have Void, who basically just I almost said shadow bans people.
Yeah.
He sends you to the Shadow Realms.
He sends you to the Void.
The Void, the trauma room. And basically, so Yelena has to go into the trauma room and find Bob and talk him down. And the one thing also I didn't get was the fact that they're just like, oh, Yelena really, really cares for Bob. And I really didn't get that sense. I got the sense that she found him more of an annoyance than anything else. And so then when she's suddenly like, she really, really cares for Bob, I'm just like, that felt a little bit of a jump for me. But she goes into the trauma space, the Void, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, oh, this is the plot of Persona 4. Which, if you don't know that game, basically the entire premise is that you have to basically go into these people's worst versions of themselves and fight them. And so they go into the trauma room, they find Bob, and then Bob has to basically beat the shit out of himself, the version of his trauma.
Well,
and then
he doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to, but like that's what happens, and then they kind of summon him out, and like you're not like cool down, all that stuff. And so it was a plot that I had seen before. There were certain plot threads that get picked up for him and dropped. Like, he talks about, like, there's one scene where he's just like, oh yeah, this is when I was on meth.
Yeah, if you've seen in the trailers, Bucky punch a chicken, apparently that was Bob. I didn't know that. But he was on meth.
But basically, it's like, because they also talk about, like, oh, Bobby the hero, and basically it was because he used to stand up to his abusive dad, who used to beat his mother.
So you kind of see this, like, you say you get the sense that, like, Yelena doesn't care for Bob. I never got the sense that she doesn't. I think she goes about it the wrong way. That's kind of what I get. Because Bob, in his past, Bobby the hero, he is basically, he's basically taught not to help. He's taught if he helps, things get worse. And that gets reinforced when they are trying to get out of the underground bunker where the incinerator is, because he keeps trying to help. And Yelena keeps saying, no, you stay behind me. She believes he is incapable.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want him to die. So I do believe she cares for him, and she understands that he is also a target.
Yeah, but there's a difference for me between, like, caring about someone because you don't want to see a person die and caring about someone, like, emotionally. Like, there's a difference between, like, just seeing a stranger die versus, like, me watching you die.
No, but I mean, like, when I say, like, target, like, if there's someone who understands what... And this is another thing that you also miss when you don't watch the previous films. Yeah. Yelena was part of a different class of Black Widow that was not brainwashed. That was Natasha's class.
She was the pheromone people, right?
She was chemically subjugated. Yeah. Which is kind of what happens to... I think when she sees Bob, she automatically knows what he will become to Ox, which is Valentina's company. She knows what people do to vulnerable people. To me, like, that's... I think all of these people have been, like, in the Thunderbolts, have been victims at one point, or have done things against their will, or have been manipulated. Bob is so early on in that phase, because they didn't even know he survived. Yeah. And then, when Valentina finds him, immediately we go into, this is how you're gonna be, this is how your hair is gonna look, this is how it's gonna look, and you can trust me. Yeah. Even though she does not have his best interest at heart, you can trust me. Unfortunately, she builds him up a little too much, and Bob goes, well, why should I work for you? This is why I think, like, you're like, oh, all these people are unlikable. I kind of relate, because sometimes these are people just not comfortable showing any kind of affection. I think there's love there. They are not good at showing it.
No, I understand that. That. I think it also comes from a place where, like, this is a very, very common trope just in the media that I read. Of like, the teen assassin, the guy who gets, like, preyed on by the military. Like, I've seen variations of every person's story here. 6 Ways to Sunday, deep fried, covered in chocolate. Like, it's not a new story to me, and this didn't bring anything new to the table for me with these stories. And again, that's also a me thing, just the variety of media that I've read. Because I'm really into Fire Emblem. There's a child assassin every 12 feet in Fire Emblem. So it's just, she didn't bring anything new to me. None of these characters really brought anything new to me that makes me want to... Again, it doesn't make me want to go back and learn more about them, because I can... Again, I don't know the intricacies of their story, but I can tell where they're from just by looking at them. And I'm just like, even still, it's just not... It's not a hatred. It's not... Like, I do want to reinforce, it's not a hatred where it's just like, ugh, I can't wait for this character to be killed off. It's... I just don't care. I don't really care if she lives. I don't care if she dies. Because I'm just like, I've seen this story played out. I know which way it's going, depending on how they're talking. And it's not really, I have no investment in this. And again, that's why it's different from me as a non-Marvel person versus a Marvel person. You have investment in her. You love Black Widow, the movie. Yeah. You have investment in Yelena. She's literally right there listening to me talk shit about her. But yeah, I didn't have investment in them. And I was wondering if this would be, like, a good movie for me to come into and just be like, if I like this movie, should I continue with the MCU? And considering this movie just basically... Because there was also, like... Because they tried to kind of catch you up to speed as well. Like, they would have, like, one-off lines where
they had little lines of exposition.
Little lines of exposition, and those came off as a little just awkward to me. Yeah. where I'm just like, I think they were trying to make it newcomer friendly, and I'm just like, I would have just rather you just cut them and just let it be as it is.
I will concede that there are just so many moving parts to this that, like, not everything hit the target. Because, like, I feel like it's, like, a nicely woven quilt with, like, some loose threads.
Yeah.
And, like, the loose threads would make it look a little nicer.
Yeah.
like if we tied those up, but, you know, nothing's perfect. And again, like, I feel like, again, you're a non-Marvel fan, so you're just coming to this on its own. And I'm coming to it from the whole phase.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, good entry, bad entry. Okay, it's good. When it hits, it hits. Yeah. Whereas, like, Quantumania, not good. The Last Thor, not good.
I slept through half of that.
Yeah. The Marvels, better entry, but got kneecapped by the strikes.
Kneecapped by the strikes, and also kneecapped by the fact that a lot of people just didn't know who the characters were.
No, they knew who they were. People just hate women.
No, there was that, and then, but general audiences who are not, like, chronically online were not familiar with the TV shows. That was one of the test audiences that kept coming up in test audiences. Where people just weren't familiar with Kamala or Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau is in the first Captain Marvel.
I know, but even still, they don't know why she has powers now.
That's true.
Yeah,
so, because she was at the end of WandaVision.
She was at the end of WandaVision, so if they hadn't seen WandaVision, they don't really know what's going on with her.
And again, like, I do agree that, like, sometimes I do think there's, like, a give and take. And I kind of went, like, I think we should probably move into, like, what this means for the MCU now. Because, let's be honest, coming out of COVID, we were in a really messy era.
Oh, yes.
For the MCU. The TV shows used to come at a pretty steady clip in a way that was, like, manageable. Because WandaVision, 6 weeks. We all watch WandaVision. Nothing else. We watch WandaVision. Good few months go by. Then we get Falcon and Winter Soldier. 6 weeks. We all watch that. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Get a few months to process that.
Loki.
Actually, one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Actually, Falcon and Winter Soldier was probably my favorite. But, like, Ms. Marvel, too. But anyways, I don't know. I've got a few favorites. But, like, it was being paced really well. And then when Disney got a little too greedy, they were like, okay, we're gonna do like this, and then we barely give you any breathing room, like 2 weeks, and then we give you this other thing, and then another thing, and it got to the point where I was like, okay, and then some of this matters and some of it doesn't, because Ms. Marvel ended up mattering. Falcon and Winter Soldier ended up mattering. WandaVision ended up mattering, because WandaVision tied into to Multiverse of Madness.
Moon Knight. Well, you haven't finished Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, as far as I can tell, has not come to like nothing in the movies has connected. Now, as far as things like Daredevil goes, Daredevil gets one cameo in the movies, and that's Spider-Man No Way Home, because he represents Peter Parker. Yeah. And it was a great little cameo, and it was great. Yeah. It was a cute little moment. I think we'd run into problems with Daredevil because, according to Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Wilson Fisk cannot appear in the movies due to copyright. So I do think we may get some that are very much, like, limited to television, and I'm cool with that. But the fact that you don't know, and there's so much, the fact that Marvel has pulled back on production, I think is a good choice.
Yeah. Because, like, when you're doing the Endgame Infinity Saga thing, you only had to see the movies.
Yeah.
You only, like, there was a movie every maybe 6 months, and not even.
And there were TV shows, but they would reference the movies, but they weren't required viewing. Because Jessica Jones and Daredevil, like, they mentioned Battle of New York, because they came out a few years after. Yeah. So they mentioned those, and people mention, like, superpowered people, like, they know that these things exist. But again, like, they don't have to be watched. Like, I have gotten away for years not watching Defenders or Iron Fist or Luke Cage. Now we may be getting to a point where, like, those might matter. You also had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which sort of ran tandem to the universe, which everyone now was questioning, is that canon or not? They are now saying it is. So it's, again, there's some things that I think can run tandem, but I do think we're getting to a more focused place. And again, we ran into issues because obviously they were setting up a big Kang storyline, and that actor unfortunately screwed the pooch on that, and he's trying to make a comeback now. I really don't care. But now we had to pivot, and that's how we get the Doom Saga, which was, I think, supposed to just come later. I think we were always going to do him, but it's just, we just had to move him up. So now we're getting, Avengers Doomsday. I do think this answered the question, you know, what does this mean for the MCU? Because my dad and I, you know, we're big Marvel people, and we did kind of say, like, well, who are the Avengers? They're not really Avengers.
Yeah.
So the fact that they finally just locked in and they just, like, went, this is it. These are your people. Like it or not. And I'm just like, okay, I'm fine with that. Because the Avengers, even in the comics, I've kind of come to discover, are interchangeable.
Yeah.
It's
a team.
It's a team.
Yeah.
It's basically the ones who aren't Eternals or mutants.
Yeah.
Those are the Avengers.
It's also, like, especially with the, because coming as a Cap girly, if we talk about the Infinity Saga, the other thing that is kind of more troublesome for people trying to get into the MCU now, as it is now, is the fact that, like, in the Infinity Saga, you kind of had main characters.
Yeah.
You had Cap, you had Tony, kind of Thor. And basically, those were, like, that you were gonna keep hearing about Cap. You were gonna keep hearing about Tony. You were gonna keep hearing about Stark Industries. All the way up until Endgame. And then after Endgame, suddenly we don't know who's who, like, to reference Deadpool, we don't know who's our anchor being anymore.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to set up Captain Marvel as the next anchor being. I mean, Marvel's literally in her name.
Yep.
And they were trying to set her up as the next leader.
Yeah.
And the fandom just outright rejected her.
Which, again, makes me so upset, because, again,
that's very understandable.
And we talked about this the other day, where I said I've had friends who, like, after the Infinity Saga ended, they dropped off Marvel entirely because they had characters they liked and they were no longer around.
Yeah.
And I said, and I was trying to get some people to, like, come back, because I was like, no, you don't understand. There's such a wider array of choices now.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not just one woman amongst, like, 6 white guys. Like, it's so nice to get to see Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop and Yelena and Riri Williams and, you know, Teyana Paris, like, playing, you know, Monica Rambeau. Like,
fucking Carol Danvers!
Like, all these things. I was just like, it was so nice to see that. I hate the fact that we're getting, like, I hated that when Captain Marvel came out, and I remember the first one, Marvel really put their whole marketing...
They put their whole chest behind that.
They really did. And all the boys just, like, went, ew, no, we hate that, and sent Brie Larson death threats and stuff. Like, it's just...
Let the girl play Animal Crossing. Come on, girls.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And this is the thing where people are, like... It bugs me when people are like, we've been doing, we're so back, we're so over, we're so back, we're so over. And it seems like whenever we go, we're so over, it's usually some kind of female-led or something where they're trying to do something different.
It's also just the culture right now, which is unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. So, like, and granted, like I said, when it's bad, but when it hits, it hits. I'm not going to deny that. But
there's some very high highs and very low lows.
But, you know... I think of it almost like a sports team. You don't, like, abandon them just because they're losing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of how...
That's kind of how every fandom is.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I don't like the we're so back, we're so over, and I'm just like, are you loyal or not? Okay? As someone compared Marvel to a television series that's been going on for way too long, and as somebody who's been part of a television series who's gone way too long, looking at you, Supernatural, you just gotta find the things you like and hold on to it. And that's kind of what I've been doing. But yeah, we really didn't know who our main characters were. We also, I don't think, got a lot of chances for, like, team-ups and things, save Thor and the Guardians.
We're getting a lot of, like, one-offs.
We're getting a lot of one-offs.
And the thing is, like, they're one-offs, but they're also, like, referential to each other.
Yeah.
Because, like, even Shang-Chi, because I saw Shang-Chi, and that was also an origin story, but they reference Iron Man. Because they had to recast the Mandarin. So, like, they keep doing these, like, even if you come into an origin story just for the origin story, you're still getting, like, you still need background knowledge.
Well, you know what I discovered? So, a few years ago, Dad and I went and just watched them in timeline order, not release order. So, meaning you start with Cap and you go straight to Captain Marvel right after. I think it was Winter Soldier, and there's a scene where Steve is hanging some Hydra agent over the roof and interrogating him. And they mentioned Doctor Strange by name. This is 4 years before there's ever a Doctor Strange.
They also mentioned Moon Knight, I think, at one point, as well.
Yes. So they mentioned certain people who didn't even come to pass for years. So I do think, yes, there's background knowledge, but I've also, especially with that, like, I don't think I lost anything not knowing who those people are.
Because that's not background knowledge, that's foreshadowing. There's a difference between background knowledge and foreshadowing. Because with foreshadowing, that's basically saying, this is basically an Easter egg for those in the know. With Shang-Chi, you have to know why the Mandarin was a fake guy and now he's a real guy. So, again, I haven't also seen a lot of the other Marvel movies, so maybe there's less background knowledge needed for those.
And again, it depends.
Or, like, if you were just watching the Spider-Man movies, you go from Spider-Man's origin story. He doesn't really have an origin story in the MCU movie.
He does. It's all three.
I know. Yeah. You know what I mean. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you go from Homecoming is the first one?
Yeah.
Homecoming to Far From Home, suddenly they're talking about the blip. And you don't know what the blip is.
Yeah.
So it's all this... There's a lot of interconnected...
And here's the thing. This is... I also think we're running into, like, an issue here where Marvel did the cinematic universe thing first, and then everybody tried to copy them, and it became oversaturated. So then everybody gets sick of the interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, that was the feature.
That was the appeal,
the bug. The fact that everybody else tried to copy it badly, I feel like takes the shine off this, because...
Watch Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn, by the way.
But and then those now meaningless because they've rebooted the DCU again.
I know, but they're still so good.
They're still so good.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be watching Superman in a few months, and we'll have to see how that goes. Because
I'm actually very, very interested in Superman, because basically I went to Thunderbolts wondering if, like, is this gonna get me interested in the MCU again? Am I gonna find my guy and take him home and put him in a little box? I did not find my guy. And there was nothing in me that really wanted to pursue any of these other characters, whereas James Gunn is doing Superman, and he's basically just like, we're going into this DC reboot project, so you don't have to. Basically, everything's going to be not necessarily everything's going to be standalone.
no, everything's gonna be reset.
Everything's going to be reset, but if he's talking about the movies that he's coming up with, he's just like, I don't want people to have homework to do before they come into the movie.
Yeah, and I sit on, like, two sides of the fence on that, like, because on the one hand, like, yes, it's daunting to come into something, and we talked about this during comic book day.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for, like, accessibility, things like that. There's also, this was kind of the question we had. I was like, let's say Marvel gets really insular.
Yeah.
And it becomes, like, fans only are kind of the people who are into this.
Yeah.
And then other stuff can be populist, whatever. I was like, do I want fandom Marvel or populist Marvel? If we started going in the direction of fandom Marvel, not populist Marvel, would that be okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sure, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks this, I would not mind just doing fandom Marvel. Because, and we want to do an episode on this, but, like, Marvel came about during that really big commodification of fandom.
Yes.
Where they're like, well, there's this thing of, like, well, everybody should be able to, anybody should be able to get into this. And, like, again, populist Marvel in a lot of these movies. And granted, like, everyone was sort of coming in on the ground floor at that point. And now nobody wants to do that. Yeah. So there's, like, an aspect of me that kind of wants to be like, okay, I'm perfectly, if people are like, I don't want to do homework, I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I did my homework, so I get to understand the thing.
Yeah.
I know Disney's not crazy about that, and there was some news that came out recently that said Feige is basically doing this massive overhaul where he's like, I want to start putting out stuff where you don't have to know stuff prior. And I do think maybe that ship may have sailed, because I think the perfect time to do that would have been after Endgame.
Yes.
Big ol' clean slate. And granted, we were going through we did get a lot of origin stuff, Black Widow aside, because and people were like, well, I don't know these people. I don't want to go see these movies because I don't know who that is. And I'm like, well, yeah, because we just wiped everybody off the map.
Yeah.
We have to start from scratch if we're going to continue.
And the thing is, I wouldn't have minded that, but they were very, very... They're very, very keen on the callbacks to the Infinity Saga. And I think that's what kept a lot of people away. Where it was just like, Infinity Saga, done. And then we were like, maybe you reference the blip as a historical event. Maybe you reference the Battle of New York as a historical one. But it's not, it's basically like, I don't want to say everyone's fired, but like completely new cast, maybe some cameos from the old cast.
See, I also did like kind of a new guard, old guard thing. I remember when Endgame happened, because I was like, yeah, those main 5, we do not see them.
Yeah. We also had a bit of a hiccup because Chadwick Boseman died.
And
he was also kind of set up to be like a leader figure.
Yeah. So I do think,
and Shuri hasn't really come back, has she?
Shuri came back in Wakanda Forever.
I know that, but like after that, has she come back at all?
She has not, and I'm trying to remember where Wakanda Forever falls kind of in the timeline along with the TV shows, because the Wakandans and the Dora Milaje are a big feature of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because that's where Bucky goes to get cured of all of his brainwashing.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he has a very special relationship there. But they are, they get featured in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So Shuri herself, no, but the Wakandans, yes. But again, I think they were still deciding a lot of what they wanted to do there.
I think the best way to put it is that, coming from someone who basically like came from Endgame and then it's just like what is now, is that a lot of this launching stuff just feels very half-hearted. And I think also once you got out of Endgame and stuff like that, how do I phrase this? Once you got out of Endgame and stuff like that, and they started launching all these other superheroes and stuff like that, and you said you like the fact that like if Marvel becomes very insular and it's just the fandom, you'd like that. I think a lot of people would be okay with that too if they're not Marvel fans. If Disney wasn't constantly marketing it as a populist thing.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
No,
because you go on the Disney store and you get bombarded with Marvel stuff, and you're like, I haven't watched the Marvel movies since 2019, 2020. Why should I be?
Okay, so I'll give you one better though.
Yeah.
They do the same thing with Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I don't give a shit about Star Wars.
No, I agree with that.
I don't hate Star Wars. Our uncle's a big Star Wars fan. If he's listening to this, I'm so sorry.
Hi, Uncle Kevin.
I have seen the original 6 movies. Oh, actually, no, haven't seen episode 3 because I was too young.
Yeah.
But I've seen all the prequels, most of them, the main 3, and the sequels.
I've only seen the first one, the very first one, and the sequels, and that's it.
I know the basics.
Yeah.
I know enough. I know who Luke Skywalker is. I know who Darth Vader is. I know who Darth Maul is. I know who all these people are. Okay? I had the Lego Star Wars video game. I know people. All right?
I used to make people hang by their butts.
There is so much Star Wars. And I fully support a fandom that is bigger on the inside. Yeah. All right? I'm a Doctor Who girly. There's a lot there, okay? There are seasons I have not seen. I don't care about Star Wars. And Ren knew how frustrated I was this morning because we were on the Disney store looking for something.
And we're filming this on May 5th.
Yeah,
and so May the 4th just happened, and if you know,
it's Star Wars Day.
It's Star Wars Day.
And I'm sitting here like, you just had your biggest Marvel film of the year come out,
and there's like
two shirts.
Yeah,
it's all Star Wars.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, you can imagine I'm frustrated, and so I'm sitting here like, so on the one hand, like, yes, I understand, like you saying, like, I would think people would feel better if like Marvel movies were specifically insular to the fans, but if Disney didn't market them as such. I'd be cool with, like, Star Wars just being for people who love Star Wars.
Yes, exactly.
But now it is being marketed so heavily, and I don't care. Like, but again, like, I'm also not out here bitching about how much I hate Star Wars, because I also don't hate Star Wars. I'm just, like, annoyed with the oversaturation.
Yeah.
Like, so
I think that's the same with Marvel, with me. Where it's like, I'm just not a superhero person. I liked the Infinity Saga for the most part, but I'm just not a superhero person. And then it's basically like, because I mean, you go on the Disney website and I'm looking mostly for the animation stuff. And literally it's like they literally put the brands so you can filter them out, and it's literally Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, Pixar, and I'm just like, I would love it for just to be separate stores.
I actually kind of wish that too.
Yeah.
And granted, like, it's all like marketing, because even if I go to like marvel.com and go to the store, it takes me to Disney. Yeah. So sometimes, and, like, I have to, like, go, basically, I get my merch from, like, Box Lunch, Hot Topic, Etsy. Like, I've learned to just, like, stop looking for Marvel stuff. Yeah. Especially Captain Marvel stuff, because I feel like we got Disney Frozen.
I keep my eye out for you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Captain Marvel stuff's hard to find nowadays, mostly because her name is the name of the brand of the thing that she's a part. I think she was done dirty on purpose in that sense. Especially since we have another Captain in the lineup, because I keep getting Cap stuff, and I love Cap. I do. Mm-hmm. But that's not who I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for a different Blondie. Mm-hmm. But it's, I would be very happy, and, like, we can totally go through this when we go through commodification of fandom. Mm-hmm. There's that thing of, like, not gatekeeping to keep people out, but gatekeeping because people need to enter through the gate.
Yeah. Well, when I think of, like, long-running fandoms that are, like, you have to do your homework to get into, the first thing that comes up in my neck of the woods is the Trails of series, which I'm a big JRPG fan. They're huge JRPGs, like 100 hours long JRPGs. There's 12 of them, all of them interconnect. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, you get into something like Final Fantasy, you can pick any numbered Final Fantasy out of a lineup, and you can play that and be good. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Persona. And people have been talking about it, like, you would love Trails of, you just have to get started. I'm just like, okay, but where do I get started? And they'll be like, you have to complete these, but you also have to complete these, and you should know this. And I'm just like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, it's even, like, when I was trying to get, like, an X-Men, I know is still Marvel, but X-Men is such a separate entity. Mm-hmm. Like, when they announced X-Men being part of the MCU, I was like, okay, well, now, this was, like, the one section I really had not looked into, because I really didn't understand what the difference was.
Yeah.
So I remember looking up, and I said to Dad, because I visit him, every week, and we watch something, and we've given up on Supernatural at this point, because we've just hit season 13, and it all blends together, and I don't want to see the finale again. But
you don't want to see Casket sent to Super Hell?
No. I also don't want to see the other thing that happens.
Oh.
And we're not going to say it, because if Dad listens, I'm not spoiling him. But anyways.
Sorry, Dad, I just spoiled you.
I don't know if he cares. I came to him and I was like, we've got to watch all the X-Men movies. So we've been watching, like, one a week. And I was like, how do I watch these in, like, timeline order instead of release order? And I went online, and basically they were like, you don't. And I was like, what do you mean you don't? They're like, well, because of Days of Future Past, there are 2 possible timelines you could look at. So basically my 2 choices were, everyone's happy but the movies are worse, or everyone's sad but the movies are better. So basically we just decided to start with First Class. We started with them when they're young, and now we're into the ones where they're older, which, like, are pretty good. Like some of the... apparently the next one I have to watch, which is X-Men Last Stand, I've heard is really bad. Basically, my coworkers have been telling me what to look forward to and what not to. So that's kind of where we're at. But, like, yeah, like, coming into that and, like, not understanding. But again, like, I'm also the person, what do I need to know to get in the door?
Yeah.
You know? Like, if I wanted to get into... I was trying to think about, like, another, like, intimidating fandom. Lord of the Rings.
For that, I'm just like, you just read the books.
Yeah, in my head, I was like, maybe you just read the books, but there's also, like, those people... maybe Lord of the Rings is kind of what you make it.
Yeah.
You can kind of go as deep or as surface level as you want.
I've been meaning to read Lord of the Rings, actually.
I have The Hobbit, but that's it. I don't have the actual other books. I also think, like, maybe Doctor Who is similar. Like, it's kind of what you make it.
Yeah.
Like, you can go as deep or as surface level as you like.
Yeah.
Whereas in my case, I will, like, watch the episodes, theorize online, and that's about as far as I go. Like, I can't speak Gallifreyan or write it. I missed all of, like, the 13th Doctors? Yeah, I missed, like, all of Jodie...
Yeah.
Jodie... Yeah. What's her name? I feel so bad. Jodie Whittaker. Yeah. Jodie Whittaker's seasons. But, like, again, I was able to kind of dip in and out.
Yeah.
Because you get nice refreshers.
You know what's actually an intimidating fandom I just thought of? That I'm actually getting into currently? Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts. Because that is multiple games, and they all matter. And some of them are offline, so you can only watch the cutscenes. So, it's currently on the back burner right now, because I'm playing other games right now. But I have been trying to get into Kingdom Hearts. I have all of them except for 3. Which I need to track down a copy of 3. But... yeah, that's another intimidating fandom, because you can't just jump in anywhere, and a lot of, when you go online and you ask, like, hey, this game has a really fucking weird timeline, where do I start? They're like, just play them in release order. There's no other way you can play them. Because you're gonna miss stuff either way. Yeah. Because I think even, like, Star Trek, also pretty intimidating, because, again, there's so many different series and
movies, because I think like all I saw was the like second two of the trilogy of the movies, the recent ones with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, because we saw Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes,
because I was
one where Spock died.
I can't remember. And then there was the second, and then there was the one after that, which we only saw because we saw the second one, even though we hadn't seen the first one. I remember liking them okay. Right, yeah. I just didn't know much about Star Trek. But
there was one time when I was working at the grocery store, and this woman came in wearing a Star Trek shirt, and I'm like, oh, I've been thinking about watching Star Trek, and she just went on like 15-minute long rant on what I should watch. And I still have not watched Star Trek, and I can't remember anything she said.
Like, I don't. I think I went online and was like just like searched like what series to watch if you want to like get into Star Trek.
Yeah,
and I got like so many different answers. So now I'm like, I don't know. Like I was like, I don't know. I heard it's like pretty woke. I don't know. Like that's kind of what I'm into. I just want to see. I just want to see like these like old show do progressive thing. I guess
another one's Gundam. Like Gundam's been around since the 70s. That's an anime show, and it has like a billion different timelines and a billion different ways you can get into the series, along with like a shit ton of models you can build. And they just aired a new anime recently, and people thought it was going to be like a new show. No, it's an alternate timeline version of like the first one. So you're going to miss stuff if you haven't seen the first one from the 70s.
Yeah, like, so, and this is what I mean, like, if you're, there are some fandoms, they are what you make them. There are some where there is homework, but like that means it attracts the people who really like to do that. And like, again, going into, and we're gonna talk probably more about like fandom as a whole in future episodes, so I don't want to like spoil all of it, but like, again, would I be mad if they returned to like fandom Marvel? No. I do, again, I think we're running into that, like, we went through that really, really commercial version of fandom for, like, about 10 years, and now we're kind of headed back to people retreating to groups.
Yes.
And I think, in some ways, that's better, not to be gatekeepy.
The merchant thing is, the weird thing about the split, and we can talk about this more in Mountain fandom, but it's, like, the merch is more accessible, the communities aren't.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing. Which again, we'll talk about later. We have an episode coming up on the commodification of fandom, so we'll try and like wrap this up in the plane. But anyways, so basically the consensus on Thunderbolts was I was happy with it as a Marvel fan. I really liked it. I think it's one of the better entries that have come out recently. I'm kind of happy knowing that is the end of Phase 5. Because now the very first thing of Phase 6 is going to be Ironheart, which will be interesting.
That was Fantastic Four.
Nope. Ironheart is going to be the first series because it comes out in June,
TV series.
In June. And then Fantastic Four doesn't come out until July 25th. So we are officially in Phase 6, headed towards Avengers Doomsday. We're also getting a new Spider-Man next year. 2, actually, because we're getting the next Spider-Verse next year as well.
Yeah.
So,
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I do like the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, those are really good. But yeah, like, overall, like, I liked it. You were kind of not into it.
I think if you are a Marvel fan who's already invested in the franchise, especially as it is now, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Everyone in the theater seemed to be having a grand old time except for me. And that's just because I just don't know these characters. So if you're not a Marvel fan, you can skip it. But if you are a Marvel fan, I think you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I think, and like, this is the thing of like, I think I love going into movies that people are already gonna be enthusiastic about. I think I like that a lot. I also think, like, again, if it's bad, we don't reward it if it's bad.
Yeah.
No one is out here saying Quantumania is their favorite.
But we did kind of reward Snow White by going.
No, I'm talking Marvel specifically. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, as a fandom, I don't think we reward trash.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what happened when Secret Wars tried to do an AI intro.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, that sucked.
Not pleased.
So I do think... I don't agree that people think, like, Marvel fans will just take whatever they shovel out. I fully agree that, like, if anything, the Marvel fans care the most if it's good.
Yeah.
You know? Like, so... Yeah, but anyways, I had a great time.
Yeah,
I will be trying to see it again, and I will probably end up buying it. I think it'll be one of, like, my Marvel favorites. Like, just like The Marvels is, and Captain Marvel, Black Widow. Like, I think those will be one of my favorites.
As for me, I think I'm gonna watch Superman, and then I'm done with superheroes.
Yeah. Fantastic Four First Steps is not on the docket for the podcast.
No.
We figured, like, one Marvel movie was enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we're thinking about possibly moving away from, like, specific events.
Yeah.
Just because these have become crazy turnarounds.
Yes.
Trying to get a viewing of the film in, and then trying to edit the video.
Getting recording time.
Not the video.
Yeah.
The podcast. Trying to record that has been a lot. So... I think the only other things on the docket are Superman, and we are actually going to cover Leo, which is going to be Pixar's newest.
I'm actually very excited
feature,
for Leo.
which I'm very excited for as well. It's been a while since we've seen
An original
from Pixar.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this was the Kill Your Normie podcast. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram, please. We have several reels up. We do have a photo from Thunderbolts that I took. You can follow me on Instagram also at Lindsey Taft Music. I have more cringy photos of Thunderbolts on that one if you want that.
You can follow me at 2am Rainbow on Blue Sky. I've been posting some original art and also some fan art for Atelier Yumia, which I've been playing, and it's been very fun.
Yeah, so if you're not following us, what are you doing? I don't really understand what's wrong with you. The podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube Podcasts. So if you go subscribe to the Kill Your Normie podcast on YouTube, let's say you're not an Instagram person, the reels are going there too.
Yeah.
So we are posting shorts.
We're everywhere. You can't escape us.
You can't escape us. We're gonna get just more and more in your face.
I'm in your walls.
You think you're mad because Marvel advertises their stuff? We're gonna be everywhere, guys. Everywhere. Also, if you want a better look at our hauls from Free Comic Book Day, check out the Instagram.
Also, read Orb. It's very, very good.
Alright, I think that's it for this week.
Okay, stay cool, guys.